Ashley Judd gained more public recognition by challenging and exposing powerful men than she ever did during her entire acting career. Yet who truly is Ashley Judd behind that fury and defiance aimed at those who commit profound wrongs? Stay with us as we uncover layers of complexity beneath her righteous anger. And before we continue, don't forget, if this exploration sparks your interest, a subscription and a comment saying "I subscribed" will let us know you're here, and we'll do our best to acknowledge your presence. Ashley Judd's early years offer a crucial backdrop to understanding the resilient, outspoken woman she became. Born Ashley Tyler Simonella in 1968 in Granada Hills, Los Angeles, she was only 4 when her parents' marriage collapsed. Just a year later, her mother took her away to Kentucky, where she would spend the rest of her childhood. This abrupt shift in environment, from sprawling California to rural Appalachia, laid down the first emotional markers on a winding road filled with upheavals and reinventions. Even more telling of a restless youth, she attended 13 different schools before venturing into higher education. During one school break, she tried modeling in Japan, an attempt at discovery, or maybe escape, but nothing concrete materialized from that sojourn, and she soon returned to Kentucky. There, she immersed herself in academic pursuits, majoring in French and minoring in anthropology, art history, theater, and women's studies. These varied fields reflected a hungry intellect searching for meaning, an echo of a young woman who had not yet found the right medium to channel her voice. It was during this period that she gravitated toward acting and performance, feeling out the contours of a profession that might fuse her analytical mind, empathetic heart, and desire for expressive freedom. Yet the acting world Ashley Judd stepped into was far from idyllic. Long before her name would be associated with exposing entrenched abuses of power, she navigated the complex, often inhospitable terrain of Hollywood. The entertainment industry in the late 20th century, while glamorous on its surface, contained hidden networks of influence and intimidation. Many rising stars learned to tolerate or ignore systemic wrongdoing. Judd, however, would not remain silent forever. Although the original impetus for her career may have been the artistic rush of embodying a character, the reality of the film world, where viable roles for women were scarce and nuanced scripts were rare, eventually awakened her sense of moral purpose. The rage and anger she's directed at evil men did not spring forth in isolation. It was forged in part by witnessing the patterns of predatory behavior long tolerated by powerful gatekeepers. Her life had started with instability. Her adolescence was nomadic and searching. Her academic years filled with questions about society, culture, and women's position in the world. By the time she emerged in Hollywood, she had internalized a nuanced understanding of injustice and oppression. Acting success gave her a platform, albeit one that initially seemed tailored to showing off her beauty and talent rather than her intellect and convictions. Over time, however, that platform would be repurposed. She recognized that her prominence afforded her the chance to name names, break taboos, and demand accountability for crimes that had thrived in silence. When the industry's undercurrents of abuse and exploitation began surfacing in the public consciousness, Ashley Judd stood on the front lines. She confronted high-profile predators, challenging an entrenched power dynamic that had silenced victims for decades. In doing so, she found a more potent form of performance, not the recitation of lines before a camera, but the bold articulation of truth in front of a global audience. While her film career provided moments of acclaim and opportunity, it paled in comparison to the massive recognition she achieved through her activism. Her willingness to speak out inspired others, reshaping public discourse around harassment and consent in ways that not even her finest acting roles could have accomplished. Yet behind the steadfast resolve and moral indignation is a multidimensional human being, one shaped by that early chaos, intellectual curiosity, and a search for personal identity across continents and career paths. The rage is real, but so is the empathy that fuels it. Her confrontation with powerful wrongdoers is not rooted in blind fury, but in a deep understanding of systemic injustices. She did not simply awaken one day as a whistleblower. She evolved through the trials of her childhood, her eclectic education, and the frustration at Hollywood's limitations for women seeking roles worthy of their talents. As Ashley Judd challenged the malevolent forces lurking behind polished studio exteriors, she demonstrated that the power of an artist can extend far beyond the screen. It can infiltrate public consciousness, inform political discourse, and even influence legislation and corporate policy. In stepping away from one-dimensional acting assignments and toward advocacy, she discovered a calling that resonated with her inner convictions. So did she regret her time in the film industry or find it wanting? While not openly discarding her acting past, she redefined her legacy by aligning her visibility with a greater cause. The heartbreak, disillusionment, and intellectual rigor that marked her journey enabled her to become a formidable voice for justice. Perhaps the roles she inhabited on screen were never fully enough. Perhaps destiny required her to assume a real-life part as a champion for those who had been hushed into submission. If these revelations cast new light on Ashley Judd's complex evolution, if they provoke thought and stir curiosity, consider keeping this channel close. Subscribing, leaving a comment, and sharing your insights ensures we continue to peel back the layers of the public figures we think we know. There's always more beneath the surface, and in exploring these hidden depths, we honor the complexity of a world where art, power, truth, and courage intersect in unexpected and transformative ways. After completing college, she packed her belongings and steered her car westward, weaving through highways with a mixture of trepidation and barely contained excitement toward Hollywood. There, she enrolled in acting classes, determined to hone her craft and find her voice in an industry notorious for chewing up dreams and spitting them out. To cover her rent and modest expenses, she worked as a hostess at the Ivy, a high-profile restaurant known for its celebrity clientele. While the flashbulbs outside hinted at the success stories Hollywood loved to promote, she remained one more hopeful in a crowd of thousands, balancing dinner reservations and polite smiles with her aspirations. Despite her newly acquired acting skills, her early attempts at scoring roles in Los Angeles yielded nothing but silence. Auditions ended in polite rejections or worse, in disheartening shrugs. Disillusioned but not defeated, she retreated from the city of palm trees and illusions, relocating to Williamson County, Tennessee in proximity to her mother and sister. The familiar landscapes and warm familial bonds recharged her spirit. Perhaps stepping away from the frenzy of L.A. would help her reassess. But deep down, the ember of ambition still glowed. This was not the end. In a fierce demonstration of resilience, she returned to Hollywood, this time burning with a steadier resolve. Her persistence finally bore fruit when, against all odds, she secured acting appearances in 2 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. These were no major star turns, but the roles, Ensign Robin Leffler in Darmok and the Game, gave her a foothold in a franchise beloved by millions. She was playing a Starfleet officer, confidently maneuvering through the show's moral complexities. This was more than a cameo. It was a sign. After facing a desert of missed opportunities, she had stumbled upon a small oasis. This taste of screen time fed her hunger for more. For 3 subsequent years, she found steadier ground on NBC's Drama Sisters, portraying Reed, the daughter of Alex. Week after week, she learned the subtle rhythms of serial storytelling and ensemble interplay. Though still a fledgling in the industry's pecking order, she was moving forward at last. Then in 1992, she took her next step, making her film debut in Cuffs. It was a minor part, the kind that passes by in a blink. Yet even that small victory signaled progress. The following year brought her to a moment of truth. Her first lead role, playing the title character in Victor Nunez's Ruby in Paradise. Nervous about the audition, she nearly collided her car with another vehicle en route, the anxiety weighing on her shoulders like an invisible force determined to derail this pivotal chance. She recognized how critical this break could be, how the role of Ruby Lee Gissing was more than a part. It was a key that could unlock Hollywood's guarded doors. From the instant she read the script, she sensed it had been crafted for her, as if fate and artistry had converged. Her instincts proved correct. The performance drew lavish praise. Her portrayal of a young woman forging a life amid uncertainty, resonating with critics who saw in her an authenticity and depth too often missing from fresh faces. Her name started to buzz in industry corridors. Oliver Stone, always on the lookout for remarkable talent, took notice and cast her in Natural Born Killers. For a rising star, this might have been another monumental leap forward. But fortune, so recently generous, turned fickle again. Her scenes were left on the cutting room floor, casualties of the film's evolving narrative and editorial decisions. Despite the setback, the mere fact that Stone had chosen her affirmed the strength of her performance in Ruby in Paradise. She had caught the eye of a director known for working with fearless actors. And even if the world never saw those scenes, the industry whispers now carried her name with respect. Taken together, these experiences formed the mosaic of her early career, near misses and small triumphs, roles that kindled her confidence, and heartbreaks that tested her resolve. She had shifted from a directionless Hollywood hopeful to a performer with a breakout role and the admiration of discerning filmmakers. Though the path had never been linear, riddled with disappointments, uncertainty, and unexpected detours, she pressed forward. In an industry defined by staggering highs and devastating lows, she had found her place at the table, forging ahead with a determination that would serve her well in the years to come. She soared to astounding popularity with remarkable speed. After transitioning from smaller roles, she entered an era where a single performance could shift public perceptions overnight. She appeared in the enigmatic and unsettling adult fairy tale, The Passion of Darkly Noon, embodying Callie with a simmering intensity that reflected Philip Ridley's haunting vision. But it was in the legal thriller A Time to Kill, released in 1996, that her trajectory shifted once more. The film earned both critical acclaim and substantial box office success, introducing mainstream audiences to her ability to bring layered complexity to supporting characters. By the late 1990s, she had not only captured fame and fortune, but also established herself as a leading actress with genuine box office clout. Prominent roles in Kiss the Girls and Double Jeopardy allowed her to navigate morally fraught landscapes, where her characters confronted darkness and danger while appealing to an audience hungry for strong female leads in a genre often dominated by male protagonists. As the new millennium dawned, her star continued to ascend. Where the Heart Is, Someone Like You, and High Crimes were each rewarded with commercial success, reinforcing her position in a Hollywood climate that demanded versatility and perseverance from actresses seeking substantial roles. In 2002, she starred in Frida, an ambitious project that ventured beyond typical studio formulas. The film's international success further underlined her capacity to engage with stories that transcended borders and defied conventional genres, ensuring her relevance in an industry quick to typecast or discard talent when trends shifted. 2 years later, a Golden Globe nomination came her way, a symbol that her artistry did not pass unnoticed by more discerning circles. Yet artistry and the business of film often clash, and 2004 tested her with Twisted, a production cursed with scathing reviews. Remarkably, she did not shy away from acknowledging that it was a strategic move, one that might secure more public attention. It was a telling moment that revealed a survival instinct. Sometimes maintaining a presence in the public eye meant embracing imperfect projects. The path to sustaining a Hollywood career is seldom straight, and she understood how to turn even a widely panned role into another layer of her ever-evolving public persona. In parallel with her film engagements, she stepped into the commercial sphere. That same year, she became the face of American Beauty, an Estée Lauder cosmetic line sold at Kohl's, leveraging her image to connect with a demographic seeking glamour and elegance in everyday life. By 2007, Goody's Family Clothing launched 3 clothing lines: AJ, Love Ashley, and Ashley Judd, an indication that her personal brand carried enough weight to influence retail decisions. She was not merely an actress, she was a recognizable figure whose presence could spark consumer interest and loyalty. In 2011, after navigating various film genres and critical receptions, she joined the cast of Flypaper alongside Patrick Dempsey, blending heist humor and mystery in a way that allowed her to toggle effortlessly between charm and tension. The following year, she secured a starring role as Rebecca Winstone in the ABC series Missing, a pivot that placed her on the small screen in a fiercely maternal and action-oriented role, engaging viewers who long for a storyline that combined emotional stakes with global intrigue. In 2014, she appeared in Divergent as Natalie Pryor, a figure who added gravity to a dystopian narrative aimed at younger audiences, and reprised that role in Insurgent the next year, further embedding herself in a franchise world that contrasted sharply with her earlier dramatic choices. Away from the spotlight, changes brewed in her personal life. In December 1999, she became engaged to Scottish racing driver Dario Franchitti, someone who existed outside Hollywood's insular ecosystem. He belonged to the high-stakes world of professional motorsports, an environment of speed, strategy, and relentless competitiveness that could mirror the intensity of show business, but also offer a fresh perspective. This engagement hinted at how her personal choices would continue to shape her narrative, connecting her journey to another realm of fame and performance, albeit one measured in laps and trophies rather than red carpets and opening weekends. They married in 2001 at Skybo Castle in Scotland, a setting of centuries-old grandeur and whispered legends, an evocative backdrop for two people who publicly vowed unity but privately shared a profound conviction that shaped their future. They would not have children. Their reasoning was startling to many, an unapologetic stance that in a world where children starved in distant corners, adding their own offspring felt unconscionable. A quiet principle, rarely broadcasted, that added another layer to their already intricate public personas. Yet despite their strong ethos, this marriage that had begun amid castle walls and old-world enchantment gradually unraveled. By 2013, they parted ways. While countless fans were stunned by the split, her unspoken truth emerged much later. Throughout the marriage, she struggled with sadness, hopelessness, and depression, emotions that lurked beneath the polished smiles and public appearances. In 2006, she reached a turning point. she admitted herself to the Shades of Hope Treatment Center in Buffalo Gap, Texas, staying 47 days. This was no casual retreat. It was a reckoning with her inner turmoil, a fight against the shadows that had long haunted her. The journey was both brutal and necessary, a confrontation that demanded honesty she had previously withheld even from herself. Years later, in 2011, she laid bare many of these buried experiences in a memoir titled All That Is Bitter and Sweet. Within those pages, she described the darkness inflicted by men at various stages of her life, a catalog of personal traumas that, taken together, formed a complex narrative of resilience and vulnerability. This was no celebrity confessional aiming for quick sympathy. Rather, it felt like a raw accounting of the forces that shaped her psyche, a blueprint for understanding her rage against injustice and her fierce advocacy for others. In the late 2000s, she crossed swords with IndyCar driver Milka Duno after a final race left Judd incensed. She did not mince words, telling the press that Duno should have cleared the track because she believed he lacked adequate driving skill. It was a jolt of candor, an arrow of indignation shot through the veneer of polite sports commentary. To her, the risks were not abstract. People's lives were at stake. Her outburst signaled a refusal to remain silent in any arena, be it Hollywood, personal relationships, or the high-speed crucible of auto racing. If someone put others in danger, she would speak out. That fierce candor was the product of a hard-won determination, forged from her own struggles and pain. Yet perhaps her most enduring legacy lies beyond the worlds of film and celebrity quarrels. For over a decade, she has dedicated herself to humanitarian work centered on gender equality and the reproductive health and rights of women and girls. In a global landscape often marred by systemic oppression and overlooked suffering, she emerged as a tireless advocate, carrying her message into conference halls, refugee camps, and underreported corners of societies. The intensity of her activism reflected the depth of her empathy, an empathy born from the traumas cataloged in her memoir, from the moral convictions that shaped her marriage decisions, and from the anguish that brought her to seek treatment. Consider how far she traveled emotionally and intellectually, from standing at a wedding altar in a Scottish castle, convinced that procreation in a cruel world was morally fraught, to authoring a memoir that dissected her own wounded past, to publicly clashing with a race car driver whose speed she found dangerously wanting. None of these episodes can be seen in isolation. Each reveals another facet of a personality defined by restless moral inquiry, unwavering candor, and a willingness to challenge norms, be they Hollywood illusions, sports etiquette, or long-accepted humanitarian injustices. For those who look only at her filmography or her public activism, a partial picture emerges. It's when we piece together her inner struggles, her bracing honesty about personal experiences, her passionate defense of vulnerable populations, and her courage to air grievances in unexpected domains, that a more complete portrait forms. She is a testament to the idea that a public figure's true narrative unfolds at the intersection of private battles, public stands, and ceaseless introspection. She was appointed a Goodwill Ambassador for UNFPA, a role that allowed her to witness firsthand the realities faced by women and girls trapped in humanitarian crises. As of May 2018, her visits had spanned projects in Ukraine, Turkey, Jordan, and Bangladesh, places where armed conflict, displacement, and fragile infrastructures left entire communities struggling to survive. She also journeyed to Sri Lanka and India, regions grappling with persistent inequalities and cultural norms that often suffocated female aspirations. In these landscapes, she observed that access to health care, education, and the dignity of choice could mean the difference between life and death. Through it all, she met with survivors, aid workers, and local leaders, forging connections that underscored how urgent intervention could transform despair into tangible hope. In 2011, she joined the Leadership Council for the International Center for Research on Women, an organization pushing beyond rhetoric to gather evidence and influence policy. Her involvement was never a shallow alignment with a cause. It reflected a personal evolution, a recognition that collecting data, listening to personal stories, and shaping global dialogues were vital steps toward dismantling entrenched injustice. Her support extended to other groups too: Women for Women International, Equality Now, and Apni Op Women Worldwide. She became not merely a voice, but a collaborator, working alongside those who fought against exploitation, inequity, and abuse. These commitments demanded energy and vigilance. She embraced them, knowing full well that lasting progress meant challenging centuries-old traditions and structural barriers. Far from passive celebrity endorsement, she threw herself into the speaker circuit, delivering addresses that illuminated the complexities of gender equality, reproductive health rights, and human resilience against crushing odds, whether in conference halls or at roundtables with influential officials. Her words carried the resonance of personal witness. She had stepped away from comfort zones, journeying with youth aides into Cambodia, Kenya, and Rwanda, countries confronting the dual burdens of epidemic illness and grinding poverty. There, amidst villages and crowded urban settlements, she encountered individuals whose futures teetered on a razor's edge. By listening, by bearing witness, she honed her understanding of the delicate interplay between health, opportunity, and stability. Her advocacy rippled outward, shining light into corners where policy and funding often failed to reach. Her activism included speaking to political and religious leaders, those who could influence entrenched policies and cultural mindsets. She urged them to look beyond statistics and consider the human faces behind every dreadful number. It wasn't only formal negotiations and diplomatic encounters. She narrated 3 documentaries for youth aides, featured across platforms like the Discovery Channel, National Geographic, and VH1, translating her convictions into stories that reached millions of viewers. Each narration channeled compassion and urgency, reminding the public that crises in distant lands were not alien dramas but human struggles, demanding empathy and involvement. Her personal journey did not stop when the cameras turned off or when conferences ended. Recently, while hiking in the Congolese jungle, a region scarred by conflict and poverty, she suffered a catastrophic leg injury. The pain was immediate, the stakes high. She endured a harrowing 55-hour ordeal, supported by African porters who helped carry her to a place where medical care awaited. That marathon of pain and uncertainty was, in its own way, a microcosm of what she had long advocated for: the idea that human beings, no matter how marginalized or endangered, rely on each other's kindness and cooperation to find their way to safety, healing, and a semblance of normalcy. After surgery in a South African hospital, she recovered and eventually resumed her life's work. Even this crisis became part of her evolving narrative, proof that neither fame nor fortune renders one immune to the frailties of existence. In that moment of vulnerability, all her experience and empathy aligned with a deeper truth. We are interconnected, our well-being dependent on shared responsibility. As we ponder these revelations, her on-the-ground solidarity with the world's most vulnerable, her demands for systemic reform, her willingness to stand before leaders and ordinary citizens alike, and her own narrow escape from peril, we see someone who embraces complexity rather than shying away from it. She refused to limit herself to familiar roles, choosing instead to become a living bridge between global suffering and global consciousness. If something in this intricate portrait resonates, consider subscribing and leaving a comment. The more we understand these hidden dimensions, the fortitude required to push beyond stardom into the dense fabric of humanitarian struggle, the richer our collective understanding becomes. Her journey teaches us that celebrity can be more than surface shimmer. It can become a torch lighting the way toward empathy, action, and a recognition that every single life in every far-flung corner of our world matters.